It is Saturday morning, and I am sitting here in the comic book room. And I was debating actually going live this morning to spend a little bit of time just interacting with folks on the channel because I've been traveling and I feel like I'm a little disconnected from people. And I'm still responding to comments and things like that, but it's not the same as, being in a live stream and just, engaging with people. And my kids are probably going to wake up in a couple of moments, so I thought it best that I not go live. That instead, I wanted to record a vlog to talk about something that has come up recently on the channel. And it's come up because of a video that was released by Jim Mint. And for those that don't know, Jim Mint is like an OG when it comes to this YouTube thing. This guy is one of the first people that I actually started watching on YouTube at the end of 2017, going into 2018. And his big thing was really around like omnibuses and statues. And I don't collect either of those things, but Jim has a pretty solid channel that I think is really authentic to him as a YouTuber. And so he recently released a video in which he was talking about ways to make the hobby fund itself. And this is a topic that I've kind of sort of have touched on in various videos. And there are people out there that watch literally everything that I release and they remember this stuff much better than I. But I think people, in watching those various videos, when they consume them, they get a feel for some of the things that I am actually doing to make this hobby fund itself as well. But there are some folks that, because they're busy and, have a lot going on, which I absolutely respect, can't watch everything. And so they're a little disconnected from some of that. So I wanted to record this video to talk on that topic just a little bit to provide folks with some insight into how I do things. Generally speaking, for me, as it relates to this hobby, yes, there is a lot of money involved. And yes, I try to be very smart about how and where I spend my money, because while it's fun, it can also be extremely expensive as well. And so because of that, I try to be very diligent with, where I'm spending my money, how I'm spending it, how much I'm spending, how frequently I am spending. But as I've kind of continued to mature in the hobby, I've also looked for ways to kind of offset some of the costs that are associated with the hobby. And it's somewhat easier for me as a content creator because part of the way that I recover what I spend on comics is actually through the YouTube channel. And I say partly for a couple of reasons, right? I release on average 5 to 7, sometimes more videos per week, every single week for months on end. And anyone that's ever created a video knows that's a lot of time. That is a lot of time invested in thinking about videos, shooting videos, editing videos, publishing videos. And in addition to that, doing it consistently week after week. So there's a lot of time, energy, and effort kind of in that. And as part of that, sometimes I actually have to buy books in order to create some of the content depending upon whatever it is that I'm talking about. So there is an investment that I am making in my channel, in the hobby, because I enjoy it. And so there are things, again, through the channel that I'm able to do that actually allow me to recover some of those costs. And one of them is when my site was monetized. When the site became monetized after, I think it's 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, that allowed me to start recovering some of the costs associated with the channel and with the hobby. But to be honest with you, that's not a ton of money, right? It's not like I have 100,000 or 1 million followers that are watching videos, watching ads, all that kind of stuff. So that's part of how I'm able to actually recover some of the money. There are other things that I do with like Patreon, for example, that allow people who enjoy the content that I create to be able to make donations back to the channel to basically, give me a little something to offset and defer the cost. And that too is very helpful. There is the relationship that I have with certain sponsors. I've had a relationship with BCW. I have a relationship currently with Go Collect. I don't make a ton from those types of relationships, but again, it adds up over time to help defray some of the costs associated with the channel. So those are just a couple of the ways that I'm able to do, to do what it is that I want to do, which is to buy comics and not, have to pay out of pocket for 100% of it, right? So another thing that I actually do to kind of defray some of the costs associated with the hobby is I sell comics. And this is a relatively new thing for me. When I came back into the hobby in 2017 into early 2018, I had never actually sold a comic before. And I, had comics back in the 90s. I was in comics for a little bit in the early 2000s. I had never actually sold a comic. And so it took a little bit of time for me to get comfortable with the hobby again, to get comfortable with grading, to get comfortable with the values of comics as it relates to raw comics and also graded comics before I was prepared to actually sell a book. And part of the reason for that is the last thing you want to do is to basically catch a brick, right? The last thing you want to do is to basically have a comic that is of value and then sell that comic and then realize that you sold it too cheaply or that you left money on the table. And I can tell you for a fact that actually happened. That happened to me a fair bit when I first started selling comics. And it's okay because there were lessons to actually be learned. And some of those lessons were things like, make sure you actually know what that comic is and you take the time to look it up in the price guide, that you take the time to, grade that comic before you turn around and sell it for $1 when it's worth $100. And that's a gross example, but there are some things that I've done that, I probably would not have done had I had more experience. But the truth of the matter is that education is expensive and I have paid for that education and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. But, it took some time for me to get comfortable with this idea of selling comics. And once I did, I do it and I enjoy it. And I enjoy it because I have the ability to find books at relatively low prices, and I'm doing the air quotes, low prices. And then I have the ability to then turn those books around and offer them back to the community at a fair price. And that is a win for the buyer. It is a win for me as the seller because I bought low, sold high, air quotes, right? And I think that that's a pretty good win-win where you can actually have a book in your collection, in your possession, and you can move it to someone that actually treasures that book more than you probably ever will. And I think that that's fun. And a lot of times I actually offer my books basically right at FMV, because I think that that's just the fairest way to be able to do it. And so if you guys remember, I did a video on selling the future value of comics. I don't do that. I don't sell the future value of a comic based upon what I think, what I believe, what I hope could happen in the future for a particular character or comic. I sell it for what it's actually worth. And I'm actually okay with that. And what I would tell you is that I never sell anything that I'm actually attached to. I never sell anything that I'm attached to because the last thing that I want is to have some regret over something that I actually sold. And I've never really regretted anything that I've sold. I've regretted a couple of things that I've given away. I've had some angst over things that I've actually given to people where I'm like, ooh, I wish I had kept that. But it's par for the course. When people give you fantastic AOKs, I feel like I should give someone a fantastic AOK as well. And you guys know I also do giveaways via the channel for Go Collect. And sometimes there are books that I've picked up for that contest and given away and then realized that I probably should have held that book. But it is par for the course. But I never sell anything that I'm attached to. That's just something that I won't do. It's not worth it. But by selling comics that I have in my possession that I'm not necessarily in love with, and I sell them to someone who basically appreciates them more than it's rewarding, but in the sense of the satisfaction of helping out a fellow collector, but I'm also financially rewarded as well. So I'm able to exchange that comic, whether it be raw or graded, whether it's been cleaned or not cleaned, I'm able to exchange that comic for cash. And then I'm able to basically take those funds and use them to do something else. And if you go back to one of my videos, I actually talk about like the PayPal debit card and some other things that I do, but it's either coming in as cash or it's coming in as basically virtual cash that allows me to then turn around and be able to buy other comics for my collection that I really want in my collection. And so it's a nice way to kind of keep the money moving around, right? And so those are just two of the things that I do, right? There's the channel, well, a couple of things, right? There's the channel, there's the sponsorship, there is the buying and selling of comics as a way to kind of fund some of what I do. But I think that there are also other individuals out there that have things that they can potentially exchange for value, right? If they don't want to sell comics, there are people that buy toys and statues. They can certainly sell those things in order to fund what they want to do with their collection. There are artists out there that can draw and ink really, really well. And I've actually met some of those people that are saying, hey, I can do a drawing for you, and all you have to do is give me a book or two that I'm interested in, and I will take that in exchange for this original art. And so, I think it's a really great bartering system that is out there as well if you don't want to exchange cash. But I think the big thing is that, you have to get involved in the community. And you have to get involved in the community to kind of see where these opportunities are, because one of the big things is that people want to do business with, air quotes, do business with people that they know. So if you're thinking about starting buying and selling comics potentially on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it happens to be, I would definitely encourage you to kind of get out there and, become a part of the community before trying to actually sell things. And to that point, a lot of people ask me where I sell books. I very rarely sell comics on eBay. eBay is just not my thing. I think that there are some costs associated with it. There is some other things that go along with eBay that I don't really enjoy. And so I don't sell that way. And so primarily, and I don't sell on Facebook either. I'm not a big Facebook user, so I don't use the Facebook groups or, any of that, stuff over there. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not my thing. Same with eBay, not my thing. The vast majority of what I do is actually on Instagram. And Instagram is my preferred platform because it allows me to interact with people really one-on-one. And I really enjoy that, right? And so when I'm selling a book on Instagram, I typically don't even add it to my page. I add it to my story. And I will film me showing various books and basically will say that these books are for sale. And I encourage people, if they see something they like, to basically reach out to me in a direct message so that we can have a direct conversation. And what I will do, especially if the book is raw, is I will actually send videos and lots of photos of the book. I want people to see what it is that they are buying. And I actually save those photos, those videos inside of that chat so that we are looking at the same thing and we actually have a record of what it is that we agreed upon. And so once I show the videos and all that kind of stuff, I then also share with people the price. And I will oftentimes include a screen grab from Go Collect if it's a graded book. Sometimes I will include a screen grab from comicspriceguide.com if it happens to be a raw book, because I want people to see, here is what the book looks like in video and photo. Here is a direct extract from a pricing guide that says current value, FMV, is of that comic. And again, I save that all to the chat so that we have a record, right? And I explain what the price of the book is, what the shipping cost is. Again, that's all in the chat. And then once we come to an agreement, I then make sure that I actually send to them the tracking number for that shipment as well. That way, again, a record in the chat that people can refer to over time. And by doing this one-on-one thing, it is, for me, a much more enjoyable experience where I actually have an opportunity to interact with the people that are buying my comics. And it's not this anonymous thing that happens with eBay. Like, I know who's buying my comics and they also know me. And one thing I will also say is that every transaction I've ever done is friends or family. Every single transaction I have done has been friends or family. And again, it's because people actually know me, not just through Instagram, but many of them know me through the channel as well. And this is how all of this stuff is kind of connected, is that people know me from YouTube and they feel very comfortable with me as a person, and they're actually okay with doing friends and family because they know I can't hide. They know I can't hide. And I think I also have a pretty solid reputation for delivering upon the things that I say that I'm going to do. And that, again, this is how this little ecosystem, if you will, that I've constructed, it's how it's all kind of pieced together. And one thing kind of feeds another, and all of these things kind of help to offset and defray some of the costs associated with the hobby. And I continue to say like help with, because I'm not to a position where, every single book that I buy is basically free, right? It's not to that extent. I still come out of my pocket to buy some of the books that I pick up. And maybe that will change as the channel continues to grow. Maybe that will change as I continue to, buy collections and then be able to turn around those books. But I do occasionally have to come out of pocket for some of the books. And part of that is because of the types of books that I'm going after, right? Again, this is a hobby. And it's not necessarily a business per se. And so with a business, you're really focused on profitability and some of that other stuff. But with a hobby, there are some things that you're going to do that aren't going to be profitable. You do them because you enjoy them, because it is a form of recreation and entertainment. And I still continue to look at comics that way. But again, I wanted to record this video with the hope that it would give folks a little bit of insight into how I manage the hobby, how I defray and defer some of the costs associated with this hobby. And so hopefully this helps. Certainly, if you have additional questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am always available to you on Instagram at RegieCollects. And if necessary, you can also send me an email at regiecollects@gmail.com. I am happy to help in any way that I potentially can. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to definitely thank you guys for taking the time to listen. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I definitely want to encourage you to subscribe. If you are listening to this on a podcast, I definitely want to invite you over to the YouTube channel so you can check out some of the other content. If you are on YouTube, I definitely want to encourage you to hit that like button. If you haven't yet subscribed, I definitely want you to do that. But like I said, if you guys need me, I am not too hard to find. Take care.